The National Football League was the only thing I was not prepared for. I never prepared to be a head coach in the NFL.
Yeah.
It just came to me, and I took it because I was afraid to be here. So I ran from this. I'll never forget the day I got the call. I was sitting in my office in Tampa, palm trees blowing outside the window. People would say, does it get better than that, right?
Yeah.
And they called me from Rutgers and said, yeah, guess what? We just got invited to the Big Ten.
Welcome back to the Next Up podcast. I'm your host, Adam Breneman. We're in Piscataway, New Jersey today at the Rutgers Football facility talking to Rutgers head coach Greg Schiano. Guy has seen it all in college football. He's back at Rutgers for stint 2.0 as head coach, was a head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, is one of the biggest, most well-known names in football. We're going to dive into NIL, transfer portal, what college football needs to do, his rebuild at Rutgers. Before we get there, please subscribe to this podcast. Last time I checked, only half of the people that actually watch this podcast subscribe to the channel. So please, let's get that number up to 75, 80%. Press that subscribe button. Your guys' support allows me to get guests like Greg Schiano on this show. Let's go talk to Coach Schiano.
Next up.
Hey, Adam. Coach, how you doing?
Good, man.
Good to see you, man.
Good to see you, brother.
Appreciate you doing this.
My pleasure. Sorry I was late. I was
good.
on campus. And the guy that I was talking with.
Didn't stop.
And I couldn't stop him. How's that sound? Some of those you got to let bleed out, you know?
No doubt. Oh, right there.
All right.
I'll get them set up, Chris.
So how's things?
They're great, man. They're busy. Just been traveling around doing the media stuff. You know, it's been fun. How are you?
You like it?
Oh yeah. It's been I was coaching for 2 years. I've tried it all. Coaching thing's a little tough, you know.
How'd you get hooked up with Herm?
So he coached me in the Under Armour All-American game in 2012.
Yeah.
So he called me. My strength coach from UMass when I was there was also working with Herm at ASU, and they needed a GA that could coach the tight ends because they had 2 receiver coaches. So they didn't have a staff spot for tight ends. And he calls me. He's like, "You want to come help coach the tight ends at ASU?" I flew out 2 days later and started coaching.
Yeah, not a bad place to live.
Not bad, huh? Not bad at all.
Yeah.
So last time I was here, I was texting my dad this morning, was 2011, the Pitt game. You guys had Pitt at home, and I remember you met with me about an hour and a half before kick in your office, and I remember you were like the only coach to meet with me before a game, and I always remember that because it was a cool moment.
Yeah, you were the number 1 tight end in the country. Of course I did. And we beat the heck out of Sinceri that day. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Oh, my God. I felt so bad for
Tino,
that kid.
right? Tino Sinceri? Yeah.
That was the year that the one season that the dude who was at ASU.
Who's that?
Who was the coach there? He only went to Pitt for 1 year. Todd Graham.
Yeah, Todd Graham. Yep.
And we're studying him, and we're like, I don't think they have a protection adjustment when you stem from this to this. So the first time I called it, I'm like, let's see what they do. And it was just an explosion in the backfield. I'm like, guys, I don't think they have an adjustment to this. They're like, no, they have to. I'm telling you.
They don't.
We had like 9 sacks that day. Yeah. That poor kid, and I know his dad, Sal, right? So he comes over. He's got ice bags. I go to shake his hand. He's got ice bags wrapped all over. I'm like, dude. I said to him, I said, hey, let's talk later, you know, because I know his dad well.
Yeah.
And I said to him, I said, you got any adjustment for that? He goes, no, I've been trying to get everybody. I said, well, you better get one. You're going to get killed. You know how it is when you get something exposed on tape.
Yeah.
And everybody copies it, right?
And the best feeling is when you think it's going to work and it actually does work
no
in the
kidding,
game, right?
Like, wow, that's pretty cool.
That's awesome. Do you always do the meeting with top recruits before games? Is that kind of in your office?
I try to do it. Now, we built, what's really nice, we built a game day office for me downstairs.
Got it.
So it's right off the tunnel. And that's even more convenient because, you know, I want to be around our team too. Yeah. So, like, if a kid's not in there or the coaches need me, where if I was up here, my goodness,
go up and down.
I mean, you're kind of removed from everything.
Yeah.
And it's not good for me either because all of a sudden I get sprung on the scene. I got a game to coach. I'm like, get ready.
Yeah, recruiting never stops, though, right? It never
to
stops.
me, it never does.
Yeah.
You know, at a place like this, I always look at, like, we signed some kids that you did or didn't think were going to be the game changer, and they ended up being the game changer. So you never know. Like people, you were a top guy, right? So obviously I'm going to do that for you. But sometimes you never know if they if there's a reason that you invited them, there's a reason you invited them.
Yeah.
And you never know who's going to be what. Everybody thinks they have this. I mean, you were a really good recruiter.
Yeah.
In the short time you did it. You're a little bit of a pain in the ass, to tell you the truth. So, but you have to, because you never know. Ronnie Geralt was a great example. Ronnie started like 50 games here.
Yeah.
It was signing date night, 4 a.m. We were waiting on some high kid down in Florida, high recruit. Ended up going to Auburn. Finally, it was 4 a.m. I said, "Screw it." We had a courier outside his house waiting to give him the letter of intent. I said, "Tell him to give it to him." And I called him. I said, "Hey, there's a guy's gonna. Don't be, I told him not to ring the doorbell. Just going to leave it on your step. Go get it." He goes and get it. And I said, "Sign it and you're in." Yeah. And he signed it and we introduced him the next day. Last guy taking it was us or Penn. He started 40-something straight games.
Wow.
Smart, tough.
Yeah.
So you never know. I mean, the exact science of it, you have an idea. But
the whole evaluation process too. How do you, at a place like this with, I was just talking to some guys before this, in this area, it's such a rich area for talent, but you're also competing with, everyone comes here to recruit, everyone in the country, USC, Florida, what's your philosophy? Like, how do you find, is it mostly finding the 3 stars in New Jersey, keeping them home? Is it going elsewhere? How do you kind of approach the recruiting aspect?
We're a developmental program, right? Yeah. So our whole philosophy is you recruit the players that are right for us.
Yeah.
I think too many people get caught up in the stars and the 247 and all that stuff. Forget that. We're going to recruit the players that are right for us. So what is that? We're looking for unselfish guys that tell the truth, do the right thing, guys that want to be here, that love football. Yeah. This is not a like it program. If you like it, probably not going to do well here. Yeah. You got to love it. So sometimes those guys are 5 stars and sometimes they're 3 stars. Who cares?
Yeah.
Right? To me, you got to be able I look at him, I say, when I watch that kid on tape, is he going to be a guy that 4 years from now can go play in the National Football League? If we develop him the way that we know how to develop guys, and we do it a little differently, and I don't shy away from that, but will that guy be able to go compete in the league? And, when you look at the success we had getting guys ready for the National Football League, and then guys that make it over time, not just play a little bit, but have a career, I really think it's the mental and physical toughness that they learn here. Yeah. That league, as you know, is tough, man. I mean, it is. If you're on a bad team, you play 20 games a year. That's a long season, right? You're on a championship team, you play 25 games. That's 2 college seasons. Yeah. So I think our guys, they really cherish that, but it's got to be the right fit because it's hard. It's not easy to be a guy on this team.
Yeah. You're in year 4 now, and you're 2.0 stint as head coach at Rutgers. What's the biggest difference between now and when you were here? And was it 2011 your last year? Here?
The biggest difference is the Big Ten Conference. Yeah. And I love it. I was, from 2002 on, I was trying to get Rutgers into the Big Ten. And it was very hard to do, right? Poor Jim Delaney, every time he'd see me coming,
calling him every day,
he'd be like, "Oh God," because he's a Jersey guy. Yeah, grew up in New Jersey, so I'd always try to play the Jersey sentimental. Yeah,
you guys need a Jersey footprint.
Absolutely, right? And Coach Paterno was great because he always wanted an Eastern partner. Yeah, so he was a proponent for it when he was still alive. And I really thought it was happening, and then it fell through, and I really felt trapped because we had done a lot, and all of a sudden we were not going to have a league, and. I was so excited for Rutgers when they finally did get invited. Yeah. Quite honestly, I was sad for myself because that was my dream, to be the head coach at Rutgers in the Big Ten. I think the Big Ten, the intersection of elite academics and elite football, that's the Big Ten. Yeah. 13 of the 14 schools in the league are AAU universities. Yeah. I mean, that's what it's about. It's still college football. I know there's all the NIL, there's all that stuff going on, but it's still college football. Yeah. And the word college comes before the football. Like, you're there to get an education. Yeah. Because we all know, there's 1,696 guys that are active NFL football players when the season starts, once the cuts are made. There's over 8 billion people on the planet, so there's not that many guys that play in the National Football League. Yeah. And most of them are going to do something else. And I love the success our guys have had in the National Football League, but I equally love the success that guys have had being husbands and fathers and running businesses and working in schools and being medical people. I love when the players come back. We had a great reunion at the spring game, and just to hear who's doing what, and their kids and their wives, and just to see them as grown men, that's what college football's about. And that, quite honestly, that's what I missed when I went to the National Football League as a coach. It doesn't happen there. Yeah, it's different. You're right. So I love being back, and I love being in the Big Ten. That's the biggest difference. It's also, a very, very competitive league.
Big Ten East isn't
Big Ten East is definitely it's up there, right? But I love it. I'd have it no other way.
Yeah.
And iron sharpens iron, and we're gonna get sharpened. We're getting close.
Yeah. When you were here in your first stint, you took this place from one of the bad programs in college football to a premier program. I mean, when I was getting recruited, this was a cool place to be. You guys were. I was listening to the Pandemonium and Piscataway call this morning on the drive here. What was it about that rebuild? Like, what went into it? How'd you change the culture? How'd you get this place to one of the top programs in the country?
Well, the kind of the misnomer is it wasn't a rebuild; it was a build.
Yeah.
Rutgers Rutgers only started playing big-time college football in like 83, 84.
Yeah.
Now, they'd have a game where they'd play a couple big schools. But then they'd also play what are now, Patriot League schools.
Yeah.
When Dick Anderson came and took over, Coach Burns was the winningest coach in the history of Rutgers, a tremendous coach. Dick Anderson came and the schedule became all big time.
Yeah.
Now, there was no league at the time, but it was all the Eastern schools. When we came, we thought we had to do things differently. I had watched a bunch of coaches come and go that took the seconds and thirds in New Jersey with the hope of someday getting the number one in New Jersey.
Yeah.
Well, I said, just look at the history. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
We just went wherever we could find guys that fit what we were looking for, and then we developed the heck out. I think our strength and conditioning program is the best in the country. We do things differently. We train differently. But the results, you can't argue with the results.
Yeah.
And to me, that's a big, big part of it. Not just the physical development, but the mental toughness and the things that we learn in our off-season program that are going to serve us well. We call it chopping, right?
Yeah.
It's the mental and physical toughness to stay focused on that spot and just keep doing it over and over again.
Yeah.
And that's hard, right? Because there's bombs going off every day. There's bombs in life, relationship bombs, financial bombs, academic bombs. There's also bombs in the game.
Yeah.
My knee hurts. It's hot. That 3 technique is a monster that's playing in front of me.
Yeah.
But you got to learn how to chop through that. And that, to me, is a skill that I think is something that our players leave here with and that serves them well, not only as athletes and professional athletes, but as husbands and fathers and all that stuff. Because, as you get older, you're still a young guy, but you're going to see there's going to be those ups and downs. And if you can't chop through it, the downs really take you too far down.
When you got back here then for the second stint, what was the biggest thing that surprised you when you got back here? Was it, it was obviously different than when you left here. There were some bad seasons in between there.
Quite honestly, there was a lot of things that, I was here for 11 years in football
that's
coaching.
Eternity, right?
Yeah, right.
That's a lifetime.
That's right. So I thought we had really established some practices that were in place that had nothing to do with football, but had to do with things like the way that players were fed or the way that players were cared for from a medical standpoint. And a lot of those things had eroded or changed. Maybe they just didn't like the way we did it.
Yeah.
But I'm convinced the way we were doing it, and we've tweaked it some, but getting that back was a surprise. I thought that those things would be in place.
Yeah.
But you know what? You just go back to work and you redo it. This is a rebuild, no doubt. We built it once, got as high as 7th in the country. Our goal was to be number 1, and we didn't get to number 1. So our goal is to be number 1 again. And I didn't come back to go to bowl games, and that's going to be nice, and that's a step along the way. But the reality is we came back to be national champions, and to do that, you got to be Big Ten champions, and then eventually, there's steps along the way. But I love it. It's a great place to be.
And the resources needed in college football today to compete are bigger than ever, especially in the Big Ten East. I mean, you can make the argument Big Ten East is the best division in college football, the most competitive, top-heavy. Do you feel like you have the commitment, the resources you need? And, I mean, the facility is amazing. I mean, even the changes from 10 years ago when I was here, it's you got everything you need from a facility standpoint. But, there's always upgrades that can happen. Do you have that kind of commitment to be able to be a national champion?
I really feel we do. From the top down, from our governance to our president to everybody who is in the university. And that wasn't always the case our first time. Sometimes my first time here, I felt like I had one hand behind my back as a program. But I do feel that now. And I do think the Big Ten is a huge reason, right? Think of the the financial difference and the resources that the Big Ten Conference, the football TV money, all those things bring to a university, not to mention the prestige. I mean, being in the Big Ten Conference is huge, not only for football, but for the entire university. So, yeah, I think we do. But as you know, it's an arms race, right? And it is a race.
Always need more.
But I look at it like this. I'm not trying to be a better version of Ohio State or a better version of Michigan or Penn State. We're different, and I want to be different, right? We have everything you need in this building. You've seen it, recovery.
Yeah.
There's a place for the players to relax. But we don't need, rock climbing walls and bowling alleys. We don't need that.
Yeah.
What we need to do is make sure these guys are growing up, making sure these guys are becoming responsible men, make sure they're becoming the best player they can be. And what we have in this building is what they need. Are there things we have to improve? Sure.
Yeah.
But it's a crazy world, as you know, right now in college football. So we're just trying to keep our head down and be who we are.
When you took the job the second time and you were considering taking the job, I think you had just taken a year off and spent some time with your family. What were those conversations like? Were there things that you wanted to say, I need to know the commitments there to be able to take this job and know that I can take it to where I want it to be?
100%. That was it.
Yeah.
It wasn't about me. I had been a head coach for a long time. It was about, do we have the commitment to build this thing into what my vision is and our vision now is, or is it going to be, one step forward, one step back, one of those deals. And when I became convinced that was there, that's when I wanted to come back.
Yeah. College football's changed more in the last 3 years or 4 years than it's probably changed in the last 100, right? I mean, it is so different now.
You're not kidding.
It's so different now than it even was, when I was playing college football. I mean, it's just when you were at Rutgers last time. How have you adapted to the NIL transfer portal time? Not just NIL, but like the combination of the two, transfer portal and NIL together is wild. And how has it adjusted like your entire strategy? It changes every part of the game, really.
I think you hit it on the head. It is the most transformational time maybe in the history of college football. Although I wasn't around in 1930s. I'm sure there was transformation then too. But you hit it on the head with the portal itself would have been huge.
Yeah.
NIL in itself is huge. And then how about the conference realignments and all that stuff? I mean, you're talking about seismic shifts.
Yeah.
The portal, I think, is a good thing if handled correctly, and I think we're headed in that direction. NIL is something that I have been a proponent of. Well, I worked for Coach Paterno, and he was a proponent of paying the players way back, right?
Yeah.
So I adopted that and listening to him, and I thought players should have been paid as long as I've been a head coach. I've said that, and at times gotten laughed out of the room, but it's not very funny now, is it? And I think NIL is a good thing. I just want to make sure that it's handled the right way, and I'm not sure we're doing that right now. The integrity of the game is at stake, and I think you're going to start to see things pop up that are byproducts of NIL. I mean, 18 to 22-year-olds with substantial money in their pocket is different than 22-year-old that goes to the National Football League and has guidance and has been through a college program.
Yeah.
I think we really, we're trying to do a great job in educating our guys, right? And it's amazing. That's if there's a real positive, other than them having some money in their pocket, is they're learning about financial literacy. They're learning about the impact of income taxes and things like that. But it's really changed the competitive landscape of college football.
Yeah.
And if, under my desk I have a little saying. It says, if you don't like it, ... change it or change the way you think about it. Well, I can't change it unilaterally, or I would, right? I'd make it, I think, in a better format. So I got to change the way I think about it.
Yeah.
And we're trying to be in our way. Again, be different. Don't just chase the trend, but do it in our way with our players and make sure that they know that NIL is something I've supported for as long as I've been a head coach, but doing it our way and being responsible with it. I hope that nationally that happens, because it can become just an insane competitive advantage.
Right. Yeah.
But I always say this, one of the things that I fear about NIL, people have been cheating forever.
Right.
I mean, people say, no, we don't, but that's fine. I'm not going to worry about that. I'm a big boy. I've done this a lot of years. The thing we have to make sure is there was always an 85 scholarship limit. If it becomes where some schools are back to, not always. In my career, there's always been. It used to be where you could sign as many as you want, and you'd see programs turn on a dime, right?
Yeah.
Can we keep it where there's a sustainable 85 limit, where guys aren't just getting paid through NIL and using that as additional scholarships, right?
Yeah.
Because you think that some of the traditional powers aren't going to continue to be? They are, of course they are.
A walk-on with $1 million NIL deal.
There you go.
Yeah.
How much of a walk-on is he, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of issues there that I don't think people really even thought of. Quite honestly, this was thrust upon the NCAA because of lawsuits.
Yeah.
And we're playing catch-up. I think Charlie Baker, taking over at the NCAA, hopefully there's you hear a lot of things that he wants to do.
Yeah.
Is it that easy to move the needle? I don't know. But I do know this, is we have a season coming up, and we need players that are bought into what we're doing. And I'm honest with them. I tell them exactly where we stand with it. We have a couple of collectives that are helping us, and I still love coaching because, again, it comes down to either change it, which I can't unilaterally do, or change the way you think about it. So I've learned to change the way right now. I've always believed they should be paid, but I've learned, okay, this is how we're going to do it because I'm comfortable with that, and I don't care what other people are doing. And I tell the recruits that, look, this is what I can tell you, and this is what you're not allowed to tell you. Now, some people are telling you that. They'll quote figures and all that. It's not legal.
Yeah.
And, I've spent a long career doing things right. I'm not going to let situation or circumstance dictate to me now that we're going to do it wrong. That's not going to happen.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you about when everyone talks about how important NIL is for the kids and the recruits now. From your experience now talking to transfers, do kids ask about NIL right away now? That's a big topic.
Oh, yeah. And families do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the parents asking.
And I don't think that's, people look at that, oh, yeah, it's bad. No, why is that bad?
Yeah.
You have a son who is, there's females that are getting it as well. You look at some of the female athletes that are making huge NIL deals.
Yeah.
But you have a family that this is an opportunity for their family to advance.
Yeah.
What's wrong with that? I mean, when they go to the NFL and the family advance, there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
Well, if there's money to be had and it's legal, then there's nothing wrong with it.
I would have been asking you in 2011.
That's right. Yeah. All right, Coach, what are we talking here, right?
In your office, that would be my top question.
The reality is the rules are so ambiguous.
Yeah.
And maybe they're not ambiguous. Maybe they're not very fair. And then states get involved. So certain states you can do things, and it just isn't, in my opinion, isn't really arranged efficiently or effectively.
Yeah.
There needs to be an overall plan for this thing. And I have no problem. I know people and I'll get in trouble for saying this, people get all concerned about the players want to unionize. Let them unionize. I think that'd be great.
Yeah.
Right? Then we have a collective bargain agreement.
Yeah.
We have a salary cap.
Yeah, there's rules.
There's rules. Yeah. That's exactly right. And people say, well, what? You can't do that. That's not. I get it. I understand. This is college athletics, and people loved college athletics for its quote-unquote purity, right? Different than professional sports. But these guys, not at every program, but there's a lot of programs where guys are making huge amounts of money.
Yeah.
Now, that's a professional athlete.
Yeah.
They're not paying that guy that money because he has a nice name or a nice image or his picture or likeness. They're paying him because he's a really good football player, and that's what people are attracted to.
Yeah.
Now, you say, well, it's not pay for play. Well, that same guy, if he wasn't playing football, would not be
making that money,
requiring that kind of fee.
Yeah.
So it is, in essence, right? I think we all have to come to grips. It's out of the train left the station. Now, how do we manage it? How do we keep the train on the tracks? Yeah. Because it could jump right off the tracks, and it could be a real mess and an embarrassment for an establishment called college football that's been so highly favored in this country. I hate to see the game jump the tracks. Yeah. So who's got to do it? We got to do it. We got to take control of it and make sure it doesn't get out of hand.
Yeah. When it comes to the transfer portal, I'm curious to hear specifically how the portal has adjusted your recruiting strategy for a couple things. One, your allotment of scholarships to high school kids versus what you save for transfers. Number two, just your staff. You now have to evaluate college players just as much as you have to evaluate high school recruits. How has it changed, everything, from your philosophy and strategy?
Well, Adam, you're exactly right. Now, like you're talking about very much, my experience in the NFL certainly helps. Yeah. Because in the NFL, you have a pro scouting and then a college scouting, right? So we have a college scouting and a high school scouting. And without a doubt, we're evaluating players. We don't tamper. We don't do that. A lot of people do. That's, again, that's never going to change.
Yeah.
Right? You got a bunch of competitive men that are always trying to find a way to get an edge. But you have to evaluate them because you have to know if that guy, and the evaluation isn't just so much the X's and O's, the tape you watch. I have a feeling, very much like free agency, you have to be careful in the NFL of who you bring into your locker room. It's no different here. When you bring a portal guy in, you're bringing him in because when you watch the tape, you know he can play.
Yeah.
And he's going to fill a need. But if he's not a cultural fit, well, he's still going to play and he's still going to make plays, but now he's going to rip your locker room apart because he's going to act the way he wants.
Yeah.
And, people follow who? The guys who make plays.
Yeah.
People say, oh, he's a great leader. He's a great leader because, yes, he's got
good at
those
football.
things, but he's good.
Yeah.
And people want to follow guys that make plays.
Yeah.
So it's really important that we use the portal, number one, to fill the needs we have, and number two, that we bring guys in that are a cultural fit. Otherwise, they can have a negative effect on your team. And I still believe you build your organization, you build your program through high school recruits. We use it, like so many other schools, we use it to fill holes. And it's usually relationships that we know the guy, or we know his coach very well, or we know somebody, there's a connection.
Yeah.
So we know the young man we're getting, because a lot of times these things, that's why you need a college scouting department, because you got to say, hey, if this guy came available, we don't have a connection to him, then we really have to do a deep dive and make sure he has a cultural fit.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. So do you have guys that are evaluating just those college players all the time? And then,
We do.
And then you have high school evaluation, and then do they, how do you do the allotment scholarship-wise? Do you save like 10 a class or 5 a class, and we're going to save these, or is it kind of case-by-case basis?
It's case by case, it's year by year.
Yeah.
So, again, I learned so much working for Coach Paterno, right?
Yeah.
The way he forecasted
The roster.
the roster going forward is something that he shared with me, and I've used it ever since. And you have to look down the road. And one of the things, seeing around the curves, where are we going to be deficient? We thought we got this guy, but you know what? He ended up not being the player we thought he is, or he got injured, and it changed the game. So now you do find yourself in a pickle sometimes, where for the 23 season we need something, right? We need this, we need that. And that's where you aggressively go looking, and you're identifying guys. You try to set up some pecking order, so to speak, where, look, if we could, this is how we do it. But again, we're different. I think the way, is our locker room, maybe 4 or 5 years from now, the locker room will be able to absorb anybody. One guy won't ever. But right now, we're 3 years into the build, right? And I like where our leadership is. But it's not ironclad yet, where you can bring anybody in and the locker room will absorb him and make sure he stays in line.
Yeah. Culture is so important. You got to keep it, especially in the build, right?
To me, it's everything. Yeah. To me, I know it's the most overused word in sport and business, but you need great players. Don't get me wrong, but you can close that gap with culture as long as they have the borderline. The bottom of talent needed. The cultural part can jack them way up and allow you to beat people that on paper are better than you. But because of a collective culture and belief system that's in place, and that's where I'm excited with our team now, is we're getting close. I've been here before. I've felt the feeling. We got that feeling. We need to grow still a little bit physically. We need to grow schematically still a little bit, but we're getting close.
I wanted to ask you about offers and your offer process, because a lot of schools around the country use offering kids as a way just to get in contact with them, right?
Yeah.
Some schools just are offering 500 kids a class. You guys historically, in your programs, offer very few kids. Where does that mindset come from? And is that because when you offer someone, you want it to mean that they can actually come to your school?
You hit it on the head.
Yeah.
But it goes back to our culture again, right? Family, trust, chop. That's our culture. Well, trust, the first part of trust to me is 100% honesty.
Yeah.
If I offer 400, 500 kids, then we start the relationship very dishonest, right? I'm a hypocrite because I asked you to be honest. And then what we have figured is it's somewhere between 5 and 6 offers for every one commitment with the type of player that we're recruiting.
Yeah.
So, we'll be anywhere from 120 to 150 in that 6-to-1 ratio. Sometimes we offer a kid early and then we're not in it.
Yeah.
I don't even count that as an offer because we wanted him, but he X'd us
else
off, before he even got to his junior spring.
Yeah.
So that's okay. I believe, it's fit. And you got to find the right fit. They all have to be a certain level or you can't recruit them.
Yeah.
But then you go find the fit and the chemistry that you put together each class.
Before we get back to the pod, I want to tell you guys about Manscaped, the first ever sponsor of the Next Up podcast with Adam Breneman, so need y'all to support them. Fellas, let's face it, shaving your balls is tricky and there's not much room for error. I've always been nervous shaving down there until I got the Lawn Mower 4.0. It features a ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents thanks to their advanced skin-safe technology. It's waterproof, it's got a 4K LED light. I mean, this thing is top notch. And the best part is I've got a special code for all of you to get 20% off and free shipping on manscaped.com. Use the code ADAMB, ADAMB. Put it in manscaped.com, 20% off and free shipping. And when you guys use that code and support Manscaped, our first sponsor, it helps me a ton, helps them, help us, helps everyone all around. Let's all love each other. Head to manscaped.com, use the code ADAMB, 20% off and free shipping. ADAMB, 20% off and free shipping on manscaped.com.
Then you put together the whole program, and that's where, like you said, Portal comes in a little bit. But we have to be able to identify the guys that are a fit for Rutgers. And that isn't necessarily what other people look for.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is.
Yeah.
And that's fine too. But I think those offers that are just thrown out there like chiclets, but I think the kids are catching on.
Oh, yeah.
And I tell them, I said, look, this is a committable offer. We want 2 tight ends. I'd like to offer 12, but we only have 9 offered.
Yeah.
The first 2 who take it are the ones who are going to get it because every one of you guys I want on the team. Now, I'd be dishonest if I didn't say, look, this is number 1 and this is number 12, right? But
Yeah.
I'm good with all of them. They're all above the line, so I wouldn't have offered it.
Yeah.
And that's certainly not the prevailing method across the country right now.
Yeah.
But I think kids in many ways are growing attuned to that as well. They love it because they can post it on social
Yeah.
media,
Yeah.
but deep down inside, they know, hey, I actually can go here, or this is really just to come to camp.
Yeah. You tell them try to commit to that offer, right?
That's right.
See
I tell
what-
them, just make sure before you get off the phone or before you leave that coach's office,
Yeah.
you just point blank say, hey, coach, is this a committable offer? If there's any hesitation, they hem and haw at all, then guess what? You know what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Clear it up. Get it right. And I think what young people have to understand, sometimes they get in awe when they're around these coaches.
Yeah.
Right? They see them on TV. They think they're just people. They're just doing a job.
Yeah.
You're the recruit. I always tell young guys, there's no recruitment without the recruit.
Yeah.
You're the important part here, not me.
Yeah.
I either make a decision, do I offer you or don't I? Once I make that decision, that's the last decision I get to make.
Yeah.
Then it's all in your court. So I really try to help the players understand and empower them in the decision.
Yeah. I wanted to dive into your time in the NFL a little bit, in Tampa Bay as the head coach. And how'd you decide that the NFL was something you wanted to pursue?
I didn't. Yeah, quite honestly.
Came to you.
Well, yeah, it did come to me, but quite honestly, I wanted to be here
Yeah.
the rest of my career. I built a house. Most coaches don't move in the middle of their tenure. We built a house literally a half mile from here, from the stadium. I was going to stay here the rest of my career. I had a great role model to look at in Coach Paterno. He's at Penn State his whole career.
Yeah.
I said, he lived a mile from the office. I said, I'm going to try to create a similar situation here. And that was my plan. I had turned down a lot of really historically great jobs to stay here. But then our league fell apart.
Yeah.
And the Big East fell apart. We were going to be, and no disrespect to the American Conference, because I think they play great football, but after 11 years, that's not the level that I wanted to be in. I wanted to be in the Power 5 level. And I had promised all the great players, like you said, at the end there, we were going to have the 5th or 4th rated recruiting class in the country before I left.
Yeah, you were rolling.
Yeah, it was really a great class, but I wasn't sure. I didn't know where we were going to end up, and you look at programs that, kind of when the music stopped, didn't have a chair, it's really hard to compete consistently. You can have a one-off, but it's hard to compete consistently if you're not a member of an established league, and we weren't going to be. And I had promised these players that we were recruiting that I was not leaving. The word, you're going back to Penn State. No, I'm not. Yeah. I'm not going to anywhere. I am here for the rest of my career. I couldn't go to another college. And as this thing fell apart, quite honestly, I got concerned. And I couldn't look the kids in the eye and go to another school. The only choice I had was the NFL, and they came calling, which fortunately or unfortunately, So I learned a valuable lesson. I share it with the players every year. I ran from something. I didn't run to something. The National Football League was the only thing I was not prepared for. I never prepared to be a head coach in the NFL.
Yeah.
It just came to me, and I took it because I was afraid to be here. So I ran from this. I'll never forget the day I got the call. I was sitting in my office in Tampa, palm trees blowing outside the window. People would say, does it get better than that, right?
Yeah.
And they called me from Rutgers and said, yeah, guess what? We just got invited to the Big Ten. Wow. I did my best to be excited for them, but I hung up the phone. I literally started crying because that's what I had dreamt of. I had dreamt of Rutgers being in the Big Ten, but the only part of the dream that was missing is I wasn't the head coach there.
Yeah.
And for things to work out the way they did and for God to create a plan to have me back here, I believe it's divine, because the things that happened for me to end up back here are almost, very unlikely. Let's call it that.
Yeah.
So I'm thrilled. I get a second chance at a place that I consider home, my dream job. Now we got to get it done. And but yeah, it was quite an experience to tell you. I liked it. I don't want to make it sound like I didn't like it. I just hadn't prepared for it. It wasn't never part of my plan.
Yeah.
So one thing I know, I'm not good when I don't plan for stuff. I got to execute a plan. Yeah. And the NFL is not a place to learn on the job. I can tell you that from experience.
What's a part that you feel like you weren't prepared for in the NFL? I'm curious.
Well, I didn't understand the business aspect of the league.
Yeah.
That's number one, right? I mean, everything is dollars. Like, just this. In the National Football League, the number one respect comes to the contract size. In college football, the number one respect comes to what you did out there on the field last week.
Yeah.
Right? But if you sign a monster contract, everyone in that locker room looks up to you. Regardless if you're playing like dog do out there right now.
He's rich.
You're still the guy who's got the biggest contract. Now, that wears after a while, right?
Yeah.
That was one. Two, I can remember talking to the players early in my tenure about, as I used to talk here all the time to them, about being a great husband and a great father. These experiences are going to prepare you for that. And I made a comment like that. And I remember one of my established players who I respected a great deal, he said, Coach, you do things the way you want. He said, but if I could give you a little advice, these are grown men. Right? Some of them have been husbands and fathers for 10 years. They don't need you.
Yeah.
What they need you to do is make sure they're in good position to make plays.
Yeah.
Get them coached, get them aligned, get them ready to go play, and let their skills, these are the elite of the elite. They really don't need your life advice. They need you to help them make plays. And that really struck me. And I said, I got it. We break it down here all the time, family on three. I started there at Tampa doing that, and then I stopped. I said, that's hypocritical.
Yeah.
This is a business. And every Tuesday we bring in 10 to 12 guys to work out during the season for your job, right? If you're player 53 to 40, your job is on the line every week, and we're going to have guys trying to take it on Tuesday. I remember I'd grab something to eat, and I'd always go out to the field on Tuesdays at lunch and watch the workouts. And that struck me too, like, wow, this is truly a business.
It's hard to tell them it's a family when that's going on, right?
Well, that's exactly. And I think the strength of what we build here is that family, is that sacrifice. We believe family, forget about me, I love you. We don't think love's a feeling. We think love's an action, and that action is sacrifice. Well, no, that isn't happening there. Don't try to. My whole thing is don't try to be what you're not. We are who we are at Rutgers. Some like it, some don't. I'm good with both. Yeah. Right. I'm not trying to win the popularity contest, but what I am trying to do is get people that want to be part of this, and build them up to be the best. The saying that's out there now that's overused: the best version of yourself. Yeah. But it's true. You can't be you can't be the best version of him. You got to be the best version of you, and that to me is our job collectively. That's why I love college football. I still think college football is the best growth opportunity for young people. The mental and physical toughness that our guys learn being a part of this program, that gets them ready for life. Yeah. Yes, football, but life.
You spent some time at Ohio State too. You guys had a lot of success there. What was it like working with Urban Meyer? And then also you spent time with Ryan Day when he was, I think, the interim coach, and you helped him some during that time. What was that experience like for you?
It was super. Yeah. I mean, it was really good for me to go back and be an assistant coach after being a head coach for so many years.
Yeah, it's got to be different.
Well, it's very different, and it really forced me to is what I believed really true, or did I forget what it really is like? And the answer was yes and no.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is true, and some of it I really forgot what it was like. And there was things, Urban did a great job at Ohio State. Obviously, look at the record. Obviously, there's certain things that he did that I didn't agree with. But as I talked to our staff about, it's all about vertical alignment. And Coach Paterno used to say all the time, we'd argue things out in the staff meeting room, but at the end he said, okay, this is it. And I took from him is now you have to go coach it or administer it like it's your idea. Not that you agree, but it's like because these guys, these players, they sniff that out right away. If you don't believe,
they can tell.
You were a player, Coach comes in, players are smart, and they play football. Right? We're coaching, they're playing. They know when we're passionate about an idea or when we're just doing it because our higher up told us to. And I learned, I said, look, I had to go shut the door in my office a few times and say, all right, you need to convince yourself that this is your idea. Otherwise, players are going to know you don't agree with it. And that, to me, when Coach used to say to us, Coach Paterno used to say, look, this is the way we're going to do it, and if you can't get your arms around it, then it might be time you go get your own team. And I don't think he meant it maliciously. He was serious. At some point in everybody's career, they got to make a career decision. You know what? Maybe I'll go. Maybe you got to go down to be a head coach, or maybe you got to go to a lesser program. But there comes a time. Some guys are lifelong assistants, and they can handle that. Other guys get to a point in their career where they can't handle it. Right? That was great for me, because then coming back to be a head coach, I can think and say, you know what? I remember how this made me feel as Ohio State. Now, am I perfect? No. I'm sure my assistants will say. But I do think I'm a lot better head coach for everybody because of those experiences, because of the tough times I had in Tampa, because of the Ohio State experience. I learned a lot about recruiting from Urban. Urban was one of the elite, if not the elite recruiter in the country. There's all good experiences. And again, to end up back here, the situation and the circumstances that made that possible, I consider it a blessing.
Yeah. What are some of those things that played out to I mean, this job came open, then you took the year off. Is that what you mean when you say the circumstances?
Yeah, and certain jobs that I was involved with and didn't take.
Yeah.
And in retrospect, man, I should have taken that job. That was a heck of a job. And then other jobs that, it looked like I was going to get and then didn't. And then after that mess at Tennessee, things went off the rails as far as coaching opportunities. So it was without a doubt, a journey. It wasn't easy. A lot of the times, as I talk to the players, I flat out tell them, look, I went through some really tough stuff too. And was it fair? No, it wasn't fair. But it doesn't matter fair or not fair, right? If you need to fight, you need to chop through this. And I think the thing that I've learned the most is when I was here last time, my oldest, we left, he was 13. Well, my wife and I raised 4 kids through teenage years, through college athletics. Coming back now as a head coach with that experience as well as all the other experiences, I don't think I'm softer. But I do think I am more empathetic for the real struggle that college athletes go through, both physically and mentally. I didn't understand it. When I was here the first time, the majority of my experience was as a player and then a young assistant coach. I got this job when I was 34. As a player, I was a bit of a rockhead. Like, I just kept going. It didn't matter. I didn't think about feelings weren't allowed. None of that was allowed. Well, you can't hold everybody to that standard because that's not real. That's not natural. And as I learned, it wasn't healthy for me, right? And I think I've been able to better understand our guys. I changed the way I kind of do my job, literally changed the schedule I do so I can be more accessible to the players. So I think it's still a work in progress. I'm 56 years old. I feel like I'm 36. I love it. I love getting up and going to work in the morning. So, again, consider it a blessing.
You mentioned Coach Paterno a couple of times. You coached for him at Penn State. And then, obviously he's been a big part of your career. What are some of the lessons you learned from him? And what kind of – were you guys talking a lot? Did you go to him for advice during your first tenure at Rutgers?
I did. Yeah, I did. And it was weird, because – I'm not sure he saw us as a competitor, but I saw him as a competitor, right? We needed to recruit against him. But Coach was always very, very good to me. When I worked there, he shared things with me that I use to this day. There's not a day that I don't use something he taught me. I've mentioned a few of them, but just overall organizational strategy, leading your staff, all those things that I think are critical. And look, what happened at Penn State was a tragedy. I mean, for everybody involved. And it's not something that I talk about because I just don't think that I'm the person to talk about it. But I don't ever lose sight of what Coach Paterno, he did for my family, for me as a coach. And long after I left there, he would meet with me and give me advice and talk me through things that he didn't have to do. And I think I've been very fortunate with some football coaches that really shared more than they had to with me in my development as a coach.
Another one is Coach Belichick, right? You guys are very close. What's he meant to your career?
Ton. Yeah, he, again, it's a blessing. His son, Steven, played lacrosse here. So because he'd come down to watch his son, Coach is a great family man and very involved in his kids' lives, we would meet and talk football before the games.
That's awesome.
Before the lacrosse games. Yeah, no kidding, right? think about being a 40-year-old head coach and you're meeting with Bill
Coach
Belichick.
in your office.
And I learned so much from. I learned still to this day. He spoke at our clinic just a month ago, less than a month ago, and I learned just listening to his clinic. So think about that, right? But as you said, he's become a friend and he's helped me through some tough times. You know who your true friends are, personal relationships as well as professional relationships, and he's as stand-up a guy as they come.
Changing topics a little bit on Big Ten expansion. Big Ten's going to change and add in USC, UCLA, possibly more depending on what happens. What are your thoughts on Big Ten expanding, getting more national onto the West Coast?
For our football league, I think it's great. Yeah, I'm excited about it. Two great historic programs. I don't pretend to know all the other implications of it. I don't know how a women's softball. I mean, I guess they're going to have a little series out that direction. I don't know how you play multiple games. Obviously, you don't go back and forth. Yeah. Nor have I really. My job isn't to be worried about that. My job is to make sure we're getting this football program ready. We have, from being in the NFL, we have strategies on how you travel when you go west. I'm not concerned about any of that. I am really excited about having them in the league. It increases our footprint, right, to have Big Ten football on from noon till when people are going to bed late at night. That's awesome for the league. Yeah. So I think overall for Big Ten football, it's tremendous. And I think it's the way of the future. I don't think there's going to be 5 conferences and all that. I think you see it kind of shrinking and coming to a pinnacle. And I consider it, like I said, from 2002, been trying to get Rutgers into the Big Ten. So to sit here and, I got to pinch myself sometimes. Yeah. Now, coming off the field after some tough losses against, an Ohio State or somebody, I said, what am I, crazy? Yeah. But I still believe that intersection, that elite intersection, sweet spot, as I call it, of academics and athletics, that is the Big Ten. And we just added 2 great historic programs, but again, 2 great academic institutions.
That'll be a fun 6-hour flight across the country for that.
I'm cool with it. Go play in the Coliseum or the Rose Bowl, right? We're good. Yeah.
And, what do you do outside of football to, like, when July comes or July, you get some time off? What are you doing? You a golfer? How are you passing?
I like to golf. It takes a lot of time. So I really don't.
4 hours.
Yeah, that's a big commitment. 4 hours is if you're playing with someone who can golf, right? Yeah. I do like it. When I was in Tampa, I got into boating a little bit. We lived on the water. Yeah. I had never ridden a boat in my life. I love riding a jet ski. I love just being out in the sunshine, spending time with my family. So we do something. There's one thing we do every year, the 4th of July week. The entire family gets together down at the beach, and that's a constant. In a coach's life, there's not a lot of constants. Yeah. But that in our family has been a constant. So I love that. But I love what I do. Like, people say, well, you got to slow down. If you love doing it, then other than make sure you have time for your family, right? Because then they're sacrificing. But other than that, if you like doing it, what I've always said is my job is my hobby. So I kind of got it both ways. Deal, right? You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, if you enjoy doing it, then what's wrong with doing it? Like, if your hobby, what if you worked till 6 and then went and hit balls from 7 to 8:30? Well, if you like doing your job, then you just do a different part of your job. But I do. I like to get out and play around with friends or my wife. That's something I did when I was out. She and I would play 9 holes and then have dinner. And that's good. I mean, I like doing that stuff. I just like being around my kids and my wife and my extended family. And when you can do it as a coach, you got to take advantage of it. You know, Coach Bowden taught me something that I still, when my kids were growing up, he said, you know, Greg, you're never going to have time to have a football family and your wife and kids. So you got to make them one.
Yeah.
And that made sense to me. He said, when you speak during the off season, just make it a rule. You'll do it, but you have to be able to take one of your kids with you. Mm-hmm. So that's what we did. We called it special thing. And everywhere, sometimes you're going to speak and you're on a private plane to Las Vegas to go speak, and other times you're driving down to Trenton, you know, to do something at the State House. But whatever it is, each kid had their opportunity. They could turn it down, but if they turned it down, it's like the draft. The next team gets to pick right away.
Right?
Yeah, and those are great memories for our kids doing that. And I think, you know, Coach Bowden I didn't know him that well, but on the Nike trip, he would share with me some things, and I still to this day share that with young coaches. You know, you have to include your family. I love when I come up to lunch and the young coaches have their kids up there. I'm envious. I remember my kids running around up there, and now they're all grown.
You mentioned that you changed your schedule a little bit earlier to accommodate for the players more, be more accessible. Curious to hear like how you changed it, and then what's your day-to-day schedule like for yourself? I'm assuming you're waking up early and staying here late.
Yeah, like I said, I love doing it, so the hours are never an issue for me. I think the biggest change was we're a morning practice team. I love that. Yeah. Right? You get the toughest part of your day done. Yeah. And then being an Italian guy, the dinner table's the big place. Well, our dinner table is really our lunch table. That's our family meal in the organization. We eat upstairs. And then our kids go out and they attack the academic part of things in the afternoon and the evening. So whether it's classes or study hall, learning assistants, tutors, whatever it is. But what I did is I used to, as soon as practice was over, I'd grab a shower and get in one of the rooms, O or D, and watch the practice tape. Mm-hmm. I now watch the practice tape myself. Yeah. Because I want the players to know that in the afternoon, I am there between end of practice and 6 p.m. I'm in my office if you need to talk about anything. So I coach the coaches. I watch the tape. I mean, they might rather have me in the room because then they don't have to sit there and listen to all the – but I do watch the tape. But if a player comes in, I turn the tape off and we talk in my office, and I'm available for them. 6 o'clock, we have a staff meeting every night, and then get into the evening's activities. Mm-hmm. But I think the players know that a lot of coaches say we have an open door policy. But when I was here the first time, it was open, but I was in that staff, offensive, defensive staff, and kids, they don't want to bother. They look at you and say, well, if I'm going to pull them out of there, am I hurting our team's chance of winning? Yeah. But it might be something important. So then what happens? They go talk to someone else. And that worries me because that someone else, they may or may not be able to help the young person. Yeah. And hopefully, after all the experiences that I've had, two things. One, the players feel comfortable enough to come in and talk. Mm-hmm. And two, you're available for them. Yeah.
I want to ask you about your kickoff proposal. It's gotten some press. I've read about it, especially after what happened here with Eric LeGrand. Where did that idea come from, and kind of explain it a little bit for everyone that's not familiar with it?
Sure. It's now 13 years old. Yeah. Eric got injured in 2010. Wow. And no kidding, right? Yeah. So I was sitting with him in the hospital one night, and I would go relieve Karen, his mother, and so she could get some sleep. And I'm sitting there saying, well, do we really need – it's such a dangerous play, right? You're going full speed down the field. Eric was a 275-pound nose tackle that was the L4 on the kickoff team. Now, why? Because he could run 4.7. He ran, yeah. Right? So, but think about the amount of explosion on contact that is, the amount of force. Yeah. I mean, the play he got injured in, the player he hit, he broke his collarbone. Yeah. That's how hard Eric hit him. And I sat there and said, is that play really necessary? And certainly I really never thought about it before. Yeah. But sometimes it takes such extreme situations to make you really think. Eric would tell you, no, coach, you got to leave the play in the game. And that's who Eric is, right? You love him. But I sit there and say, is there another way to do it? Yeah, I think there is another way to do it, right? And then the question, like you do on so many of the spring games, you see them, they start with the ball in the 25 or whatever it is. Well, then what about onside kicks? Well, I said, why don't we just say, I don't know what the numbers are, and I never really took the time to figure it out. I said, leave that to the rules makers.
Yeah.
But whatever the percentage is, each, do a 5-year rolling study, whatever the percentage is of onside kicks recovered, find that same percentage 5-year rolling average of what a third or fourth down conversion is. So maybe it's 3rd and 18.
Yeah.
And do 3rd and 18 from the 20 or 25 yard line. I don't care, whatever. And make it where if you convert that, and maybe it's 3rd and 25. I don't know what the numbers are, but match the numbers. It doesn't take a lot of work. And say, if you complete it and convert, then you get the ball. And if you don't, they get the ball. And it's going to be about the same spot. Where is an onside kick recovered? Right? About the 46-yard line. Right? It's kick it off from the 35. It's got to go 10. So let's call it the 46. So whatever that yardage is, back it up from the 46, make it a 4th down play. And I think it would be really exciting, right? To have the offense. And, the one thing is people yell, well, then the specialists are out of the game. I disagree, right? The kickoff guy is out of the game.
Yeah.
But the guy who has to stick it between those pipes, still pretty important, right?
Yeah.
Many a exciting game come down to that last kick, the walk-off field goal to win it.
Yeah.
The punters are still needed. Punt returners are still needed. You say, well, why punt and not kickoff? Punt's a different play.
Yeah.
I believe that. Now, do I think that we've done things to make kickoff safer? Absolutely. The advent of the fair catch, the advent of the touchback, moving the ball up, all those things, putting them inside of the 5 yards. We've done a lot of things to make the kickoff safer.
Yeah.
Like we've done a lot of things to make the game safer.
Yeah.
I think the leadership of the game, I'm not being super critical because I really am impressed with what we've done in the last 15 years. Do I still believe that it's needed? I don't. I don't believe the kickoff is needed. Now, some purists would say, "Are you crazy?" And I got some nasty emails when I spoke of the idea. But again, any change, right? Any growth, there's change. Change is hard. But imagine if we're still playing with a leather helmet. That wouldn't be so good either, right? So I think you have to look, and there's people that progressively, continually look at the rules each year.
Yeah.
And I know it's come up in conversation. I remember I was with Commissioner Goodell, and I pitched the idea to him, and then it's been batted around the NFL circles.
Yeah.
This was back when I was here the first time, so probably 2011.
What was his reaction? Was it receptive?
He's a great listener.
You were crazy.
No, he's a great listener. He said, there may be some merit there. We're doing studies, and depending on who does the studies, people will come back and say, well, there's no additional health risk on the kickoff. Well, I couldn't disagree more, but if your data says that, I think I can make my data say differently as well. Data is very interesting, how you use it, how you interpret it. But from real life, from being on the sideline for 36 years, there are some hellacious collisions. Okay. And sometimes the ball's kicked out of the end zone and there's still a collision. Right? Guys are running full speed. Guys are blocking them. Meanwhile, the ball's either being fair caught or kicked out the back of the end zone. And two guys just laid it on the line for a non-play. Every line of scrimmage play, there's a result.
Yeah, there's a play.
You got it. And I don't, that's my own personal feeling. Do I think it'll ever happen? I don't know. We'll see.
Last couple of things I got for you. I appreciate all your time. As you can tell, I got a lot of things I wanted to talk to you about. You just mentioned data. What's your view on analytics? And when you're choosing, you have a 4th down and 4 on the 50-yard line, and you're deciding if you're going to go for it or not. How much are you looking at the book, and how much are you going with your gut instinct?
A little bit of both. Yeah, I think the book is a good predictor, but they're dead numbers. They already happened. So they're a predictor for sure. That's what all analytics are. But I think you have to have the human element and experience to plug those dead numbers and make them live right at that situation. So what do I mean dead numbers? They've happened in the past. But certain, when you figure out your analytics, you have to make sure to really make them as precise as possible. You need to be changing them right up to the last minute before game time. Wind, conditions, injuries, they all have to be factored in. Otherwise, they truly are dead numbers. Now, you can make them more live numbers by the more specific you are with them. But at the end of the day, I use it as kind of a suggestion. I think what it does to me as a head coach is it makes me just think a little bit more in certain situations. And it makes me, more importantly, in our preparation, situational football is so critical.
No doubt.
And it makes me have an increased value in the studying that I do of it, and the staff does. I have a certain group of guys on the staff that are part of the situational football kind of think tank, and we look at that stuff. And I have guys that are always analyzing all the things. We subscribe to some things. We have in-house analytics. So I think every resource is critical, but they're all data points. Same thing with the sports science that's going on in this day and age. I think this stuff's awesome, right? We can predict soft tissue injuries before they occur. But if you don't utilize it in real time, it's nothing more than a doctoral thesis.
Yeah.
You need to institute certain controls and measures as that data happens, and you learn of it, because it could happen that practice if you're not quick to move with it. So I think it is all a growth opportunity. I don't think you can stick your head in the sand. I mean, but the world's changing so fast, with AI and all that stuff. How do you use that all to improve your situation, but not let it take over your situation?
Yeah. Do you have a book guide during the game that's telling you what the book says?
I do.
When it's coming up?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes it's, sometimes I laugh. I'm like, well,
it says to go for it.
I'll tell you what, let the book stand up there after the game and look the team in the eye on that one, But it does make me think. And again, I look at it before the game, so nothing should catch me by that much surprise.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's all part of it.
To get this place, Rutgers, to where you want it to be in the next 3 to 5 years, what are the 1 or 2 things that need to happen for you guys to get there?
Continue to fill the pipeline. I look at our program from a personnel standpoint as a pipeline of people. And there's 2 levels. There's the players, and then there's the staff. We have to continue. One of the number one things as the head coach, it's my job to continually be evaluating future staff members. Because as you know, it's a transient profession, right? People come and go.
Yeah.
And it's my job to make sure every time we replace someone that there's a net upgrade. So that's hard to do, right? When you lose a great coach, a net upgrade may take 2 people. You may not only be able to replace that person with 1 person if they're an elite performer. So it's make sure that I'm staying current with staff needs. And then with the players, that pipeline is recruit the right guys for Rutgers and fill the pipeline. Because once it's full, it starts running out the other end. And we're about 3/4 full. We got to get the rest of the pipeline full, and then it'll start flowing. And that's what happened last time, because we're a developmental program.
Yeah.
So when we bring a guy in at 18 years old, he's got to develop and get to the end of that pipeline where he's 21 now and he's physically and emotionally able to go out there and dominate a game. Well, the more you have in the pipeline, eventually the more that get to the end of the pipeline where they're older, they're men. It's a big, you did it. It's a huge difference when you're an 18-year-old and when you're a 22-year-old.
No doubt.
I mean, it's men playing against young boys, right? So I think fill in the pipeline, and that is recruit and develop. If you say, what's the underlying philosophy? Recruit and develop. Recruit and develop.
Yeah.
You got to recruit the right guys for Rutgers, and then everything else we do is to develop them in every area of their life.
Yeah.
I would argue this is the most holistic program there is in the country when you're talking about dealing with every area of the players' lives.
You mentioned the part that we didn't even hit on, the staff retention, right? Just you got to recruit your own staff as well and make sure they're happy every year.
100%.
Everyone wants more money, right?
And that's where resources, as you mentioned earlier, Rutgers has been incredible in stepping up and helping go out and get the best staff we can have. Because, I used to think I could, as a young coach, I'll just do it myself. I'll will it to happen. Not so fast.
Yeah.
And especially as you change some of your priorities. If I'm going to be in my office for 6 hours watching the tape by myself and then go talk to the staff, well, I better have 2 great leaders running the offense and the defense because they are running 2 major operations each side of the ball, and then someone that's running special teams as well. So the resources needed to do that. I feel blessed that Rutgers has stepped up that way, but recruit and develop both our talent in the staff and our talent in the team.
Last thing I got for you. What's your why? What's the reason you decided to coach? What's the reason you do this every single day?
I think when I look at it, everybody's gifted in certain ways, right? God gives everybody different gifts. One of the gifts that I have is the ability to gather people and help them come together for a common cause. And in doing that, I think you can teach so many life lessons. And as I said earlier, I'm at the point in my career when I see my players now, some of them are 40 years old, right? They play, I'm recruiting their sons, right? And I sit there and say, wow, I knew that kid when he was 17, and he could have gone either way.
Yeah.
And now I look at him, and he's just the epitome of what you want your son to grow up like. So that's my why. But again, I have to always be careful to make sure that my own family is involved in everything we're doing. Otherwise, I miss out, and I can't. I've heard coaches say, "Well, I raised everybody else's kids, and I never wanted to be that dad." But there's been challenges. I'm blessed with an unbelievable wife who did a great job, raising our kids and keeping our family together. And I'm grateful for that. I feel that's the ultimate blessing. But I just feel like that's something that I can do well, and I think I can have an impact on people's lives. So that's why I do it.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Coach, I appreciate your time. It was fun to reconnect with you and see you again. It's been like 10 years since I think I saw you last. So I'm excited to see where you take this place, man. I'm a Rutgers fan, so I'm excited to see what you guys are able to do.
Well, it was great having a chance to sit down with you, Adam. Thanks.
Appreciate it, Coach.